It was nearly midnight in Charlotte, North Carolina, when Daniel Hayes heard the soft buzz of a phone vibrating against the wooden nightstand. He stirred in bed, rolling onto his side. His wife, Emily, lay beside him, her back turned, the pale light from the screen casting a glow across her shoulder. She reached quickly, too quickly, and silenced it. Daniel blinked against the darkness, the faint hum of the ceiling fan filling the silence between them. "Who's texting you this late?" he asked, his voice groggy, careful not to sound accusatory. Emily hesitated. He could see the tension in the way her shoulders stiffened. Then, without turning, she said lightly, "Just work stuff. Megan needs the schedule for next week. You know how it is." She set the phone face down on the nightstand. Daniel stared at her outline in the dark, the subtle rise and fall of her breath. He wanted to believe her, God, he wanted to believe her, but something didn't fit. Megan, her manager at the interior design firm, wasn't the type to send urgent midnight texts. Still, Daniel said nothing. He let the silence expand, though sleep would not return easily that night. The next morning, Charlotte greeted him with warm September sunlight spilling through their kitchen windows. Emily hummed softly as she prepared coffee, her hair pulled back neatly, her face carefully made up despite the early hour. She looked radiant, though maybe a little too radiant for an ordinary Thursday. Daniel sat at the table, scrolling half-heartedly through the news on his phone. "Big day at work?" he asked, watching her. Emily paused, her hand hovering over the sugar jar. Just a second too long. Then she smiled, wide and practiced. "Yeah, we're meeting a new client. It's a huge project." Her enthusiasm seemed real, but Daniel noticed she wore the new blouse he hadn't seen before, soft silk with a low neckline. Not the kind of thing she usually chose for meetings. "Looks nice," he said, forcing a smile. "New?" "Yeah," she said quickly. "Picked it up last weekend." But Daniel remembered last weekend clearly. They'd gone grocery shopping together, cleaned the garage, and watched college football. She hadn't bought clothes. Something didn't add up. That evening, when Emily said she had to stay late at the office, Daniel's unease sharpened. He ordered takeout, ate alone at the dining table, and stared at the empty chair across from him. The house felt larger without her laughter, quieter, colder. Around 9, he drove past her office building downtown. Most of the windows were dark, save for a faint glow on the third floor. He parked across the street, his hands tight on the steering wheel. Moments later, Emily stepped out of the front doors. She wasn't alone. A man in a crisp shirt and dark slacks walked beside her, his hand brushing against hers as they laughed softly together. Emily tilted her head toward him, her smile the same one Daniel used to see when they first fell in love. Daniel's stomach dropped. He gripped the wheel so hard his knuckles went white. The man opened the door of a black sedan for her, and Emily slid in gracefully. They drove off into the night. And for the first time in 12 years of marriage, Daniel wasn't sure who his wife really was. Chapter 2, Cracks in the Picture. The next morning, Daniel went through the motions of his routine, shower, coffee, quick glance at emails, but his mind was elsewhere. The image of Emily laughing with that man outside her office replayed in his head like a loop he couldn't stop. He wanted to confront her. He wanted to grab hold of her wrist, look her straight in the eyes, and demand an explanation. But the thought of hearing the truth, or worse, being lied to again, froze him. Instead, he decided to wait. To watch. That evening, when Emily came home smiling, carrying a takeout bag of Thai food, she kissed his cheek as if nothing in the world was wrong. "Long day?" Daniel asked, studying her carefully. "The longest," she sighed, setting the food on the counter. "You wouldn't believe how picky this new client is. Wants every detail perfect. I'm exhausted." Daniel forced a chuckle, though the lie cut deep. She was good. Too good. Later, while Emily showered, Daniel wandered into their bedroom. Her purse sat on the dresser. He hesitated only a second before slipping his hand inside, fingers brushing past her wallet, keys, and a packet of gum. Then he found it, an unfamiliar receipt folded neatly. He unfolded it, heart pounding. It wasn't from a design store or a cafe near her office. It was from the Magnolia Hotel bar, time-stamped 9:32 p.m. the night before. 2 glasses of wine. Daniel swallowed hard. He folded the paper back exactly as he found it and returned it to her purse. When Emily emerged from the shower, wrapped in a towel, steam curling around her, Daniel sat calmly on the bed with his phone, pretending to scroll. "Thinking about turning in early," he said. She smiled, water glistening on her collarbone. "Good idea. Tomorrow's another long one." By the weekend, Daniel couldn't hold it in anymore. At a backyard cookout with their neighbors, Emily floated around the patio, laughing, glass of wine in hand, while Daniel stayed near the grill, distracted. He watched her across the lawn, the way she touched her hair when she spoke, the way her eyes sparkled. To anyone else, she looked like the perfect wife, the perfect hostess. But Daniel saw the cracks now. He saw the careful performance. Their neighbor, Greg, clapped him on the back. "Man, you're lucky. Emily's something else." Daniel forced a tight smile. "Yeah. I know. But luck wasn't the word he would have chosen." That night, as Emily slept peacefully beside him, Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He thought about their life together, the early days in their tiny Chicago apartment before they'd moved south, the road trips, the way Emily used to fall asleep on his shoulder during movies. When had she stopped reaching for his hand? When had her laughter started to belong to someone else? He turned his head, watching her in the dark. She looked serene, innocent. And yet her phone, resting silently on the nightstand, felt like a locked vault holding all the answers. His pulse quickened. He reached for it. The screen lit up with a password prompt. 4 digits. He tried her birthday. Wrong. Their anniversary. Wrong. His birthday. Wrong. The phone locked. Daniel let out a slow breath and set it back. He wasn't ready to cross that line. Not yet. But the truth was out there, and piece by piece, it was slipping into his hands. Chapter 3, The Shadow He Cast. On Monday morning, Emily kissed him goodbye as usual. Her lips brushed his cheek lightly, her perfume lingering in the air as she stepped out the door with her leather bag slung over her shoulder. Daniel stood in the kitchen with his coffee cooling in his hands, staring at the door long after it shut. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, he set his mug down and grabbed his keys. If she was lying, he needed proof. He followed at a distance, heart hammering as he merged onto I-77, careful to keep 2 or 3 cars between them. Emily's silver SUV glided smoothly down the freeway toward downtown Charlotte. She exited near her office, just as expected. Daniel parked on the opposite side of the street, his eyes fixed on her through the windshield. She walked briskly toward the building, phone pressed to her ear, her smile private, almost secret. For the next few hours, Daniel sat in his car, pretending to check emails, sipping on bottled water, while watching the revolving glass doors. He told himself he was being ridiculous. Maybe she really was working late nights. Maybe the man he saw before was just a client. But then, just after noon, Emily emerged. She wasn't alone. The same man from the other night walked beside her, tall, broad-shouldered, his hand brushing hers as they crossed the street. They turned the corner together, heading away from her office. Daniel's chest tightened. He slid out of his car and followed on foot, blending into the lunch-hour crowd. They ended up at a cafe tucked into a side street lined with oak trees. Daniel lingered at the corner, his pulse in his ears, watching through the window as Emily and the man sat across from each other at a small table. She leaned in, laughing softly, her hand reaching across the table to touch his wrist. The man smiled, his gaze fixed on her like she was the only person in the room. It wasn't business. It wasn't friendship. It was something else, something intimate, something stolen. Daniel's stomach churned. He fumbled for his phone, raising it just enough to snap a blurry photo through the glass. Proof. Not much, but enough. That evening, Emily came home later than usual. She carried grocery bags, her hair slightly tousled, cheeks flushed. She smiled warmly at Daniel as though nothing in the world was wrong. "Thought we could cook together tonight," she said cheerfully, pulling out pasta and a bottle of wine. "Haven't done that in a while." Daniel forced himself to help, chopping onions while she stirred sauce, the kitchen filled with the comforting smells of garlic and basil. For a brief moment, it felt normal. Familiar. But every laugh, every glance, every brush of her hand against his felt tainted, poisoned by what he'd seen earlier. Over dinner, Daniel studied her closely. "How was work?" he asked casually. She didn't blink. "Busy. Megan's riding me hard about this new account." His throat tightened. "Did you get a chance to grab lunch?" "Barely," she said, sipping her wine. "Just a quick salad at my desk." The lie slid from her lips so easily he almost believed her. Almost. That night, as Emily slept beside him, Daniel sat in the dark living room, staring at the blurry photo on his phone. His hands trembled as he zoomed in, the way her fingers brushed the man's wrist, the unmistakable warmth in her eyes. It wasn't just a fling. It wasn't just an accident. She was giving away pieces of herself that once belonged to him. And Daniel knew, with a clarity that chilled him, that this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Chapter 4, The Man with No Name. By Tuesday, Daniel couldn't focus at work. Numbers and emails blurred on his screen, every conversation with colleagues felt distant. His mind replayed only one thing, Emily, leaning across that cafe table, her smile belonging to someone else. At lunchtime, instead of eating with his co-workers, he pulled into a quiet parking lot and searched the photo on his phone again. He zoomed in on the man's face, clean-shaven, mid-30s, sharp jawline. The image was grainy, but Daniel felt like the man was staring back at him, taunting him. Who was he? He needed to know. That night, when Emily showered, Daniel slipped back into her purse. He found another receipt, this time from the Dunhill Hotel, time-stamped 2 days earlier. 2 cocktails. 1 room service charge. His stomach twisted. He slipped it into his pocket and quickly replaced everything. The next day, Daniel took a personal day off work. He dropped Emily at her office as if nothing was wrong, kissing her cheek, watching her disappear through the glass doors. Then he parked down the block, his eyes fixed. Hours crawled by. At noon, Emily stepped outside again, right on cue. The man was with her. Daniel snapped another photo as they walked arm in arm toward a nearby parking garage. He followed at a safe distance, his pulse thundering. The man unlocked a sleek black sedan, same one from the other night, and held the door for her. Daniel angled his phone to capture the license plate. That evening, he sat in his darkened home office, staring at the plate number scribbled on a notepad. After some searching and a few calls to a buddy who worked in private security, he got what he needed: Ryan Carter, age 36, sales director at a pharmaceutical company headquartered in uptown Charlotte. Divorced. No kids. A wave of nausea hit him. It was real now. This man had a name, a job, a life. And that life was colliding with Daniel's. Dinner with Emily was unbearable. She was radiant again, chatting about weekend plans, about a friend's baby shower, about paint samples for the guest room. Daniel stirred his pasta without tasting it. Finally, he asked, "Do you know a Ryan Carter?" For a split second, barely a flicker, her fork paused midair. Then she smiled, casual, too casual. Ryan? The name sounds familiar, but, no, I don't think so. Why? Daniel held her gaze. Just heard the name today at work. Thought maybe you knew him through design. Her smile lingered, but her eyes shifted away. Nope. Doesn't ring a bell. He nodded slowly. Strange. Inside, his chest burned. She'd lied without hesitation. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He sat on the edge of their bed, staring at Emily's sleeping form, wondering how many nights she'd shared her laughter, her body, her heart with someone else. He felt rage coil inside him, sharp and hot. But beneath it, there was something worse, grief. Because he was starting to realize the woman he loved was already gone. Friday evening arrived thick with humidity, the kind of southern heat that clung to the skin even after the sun dipped low. Daniel sat at the dining table with 2 tumblers of whiskey poured, his phone face down beside him. The house was too quiet, the silence alive with anticipation. Emily walked in at 7:46 p.m., hair perfectly styled, makeup subtle but deliberate. She smiled when she saw him. "You're home early. I thought you'd be working late." Daniel gestured to the glass of whiskey across from him. "I wanted to have a drink with my wife." She hesitated, then set her bag down and slid into the chair. Her eyes flicked to the untouched second glass. "What's the occasion?" Daniel leaned back, his gaze steady. "I know about Ryan." The name cracked the air like thunder. Emily froze, her breath caught in her throat. Then, slowly, she forced a laugh. "Ryan? I don't know who." Daniel cut her off. "Don't. I have photos, Emily. Receipts. I know about the Dunhill Hotel. I know about the cafe. I even know his license plate." Her face drained of color. For the first time in months, she couldn't find a smile to cover her lie. Silence stretched between them, sharp and suffocating. Finally, she whispered, "Daniel. I didn't mean for it to happen." He slammed his palm on the table, the glasses rattling. "Didn't mean for it to happen. You've been sneaking out for months. Laughing with him. Sleeping with him. While I sat here, loving you." Tears welled in her eyes, but Daniel saw no remorse in them, only fear of being caught. "Why?" he demanded, his voice raw. "Wasn't I enough?" Emily's lips trembled. "It wasn't about you. I felt alive again. With him. Like I was seen. Do you understand what that's like? To feel invisible in your own marriage?" The words cut deep, deeper than any blade. Daniel recoiled as if struck. For a moment, neither spoke. The cicadas outside droned on, filling the silence of a marriage collapsing. Finally, Daniel pushed back his chair, his decision crystallized. He slid an envelope across the table, divorce papers, freshly signed on his end. Emily stared at it, her hand shaking. "You already." "I already knew where this was heading," Daniel said, his voice steady now, steel beneath the sorrow. "You chose him. You don't get to keep me too." Her tears fell freely now, streaking her face. "Daniel, please." But he stood, walking toward the door. He paused, hand on the knob, and turned back one last time. "You killed us, Emily. Not Ryan. Not me. You." And with that, he left. Epilogue. 2 weeks later, Daniel sat alone on a bench overlooking Freedom Park's lake. Autumn leaves floated across the water, the air cooler now, sharper. He sipped coffee, his ring finger bare. Life felt emptier, yes. But also clearer. The weight of suspicion, the gnawing doubt, the endless lies, all gone. Emily had tried calling. She'd sent long messages filled with apologies, excuses, promises. He deleted them all. He had no space left for ghosts. Daniel wasn't sure what came next. But he knew one thing for certain: whatever future waited for him, it would be built on truth. Not betrayal. The breeze shifted, carrying the scent of pine and fresh earth. He closed his eyes, breathing it in, letting it wash over him. And for the first time in months, he felt alive again.